Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, the National Assembly is set to begin its 100-day regular session later today, but the political impasse over the special Sewol-ho ferry bill is likely to prevent Parliament carrying out its legislative duty. Japanese wrestler turned politician Antonio Inoki spreads his band of sports diplomacy in Pyongyang with an event featuring martial artists from around the world. Plus, Russian President Vladimir Putin dramatically raises the stakes in the Ukraine conflict by calling for the first time for talks on the statehood of Ukraine's restive east. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, September 1st. Here in Seoul, I'm Mark Broome and you are tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, Korea's National Assembly is set to begin its 100-day regular session on this Monday, but rival parties are in a prolonged impasse and that could affect the government's 2015 budget proposal. The parties are at odds over a special law aimed at investigating April's deadly Sewol-ho ferry disaster in much greater detail. Lawmakers have not processed a single bill since July, with the main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, staging sit-ins and boycotting all parliamentary proceedings. The 2015 spending bill has to be passed by the end of November, or the government risks starting the year with a provisional budget only that only funds the basics and could halt payments to government employees, the elderly and people in need. Korea will kick its fighter jet development program into full gear this month by opening the bidding for the $8.3 billion project. The project involves building 120 fighter jets to replace the country's aging fleet and developing more jets for export purposes, while Korea Aerospace Industries, which is Korea's sole jet producer, is widely expected to win this very lucrative contract. Global companies have been watching the project closely to see who will build the key components and the various systems that will go into these jets. In a separate deal, Korea agreed to buy 40 F-35A fighters from Lockheed Martin, which will lend technology and know-how to the jet development program. Now, while there's speculation a US official recently paid a visit to Pyongyang, the White House says it stands by its policy of only reviving talks with North Korea when the regime shows sincerity with actions. National Security Council spokesperson Patrick Ventrell told South Korea's Yonhap news agency that Washington is open to sincere and trust-based talks with Pyongyang, but the regime must first display its readiness to denuclearize. The spokesperson then urged the North to use a New York-based channel instead of civilian routes as a means of communication with the US. Now, reports of an informal meeting between US and North Korean officials in Pyongyang and the North Korean foreign minister's scheduled attendance at the UN General Assembly, that is coming up later this month. These have all fueled speculation of renewed dialogue between the two sides. And with renewed hopes of bringing North Korea back to the negotiating table, South Korea plans to send its top security advisor to Washington in the coming days. The South's presidential office spokesperson, Min Kyung-uk, says the two sides are discussing the National Security Office Chief Kim Kwan-jin's trip, and that it would center around his cooperation with US counterparts. The trip, widely expected to be around the Chuseok, or Korean Thanksgiving holiday, which is next week, would be Kim's first as the top presidential advisor here in South Korea. Topping the agenda would be the likelihood of Pyongyang agreeing to Seoul's proposed talks on the prospect of lifting some sanctions on their joint commercial projects. Now, in a rare display of foreign sports stars and really rather raucous cheering in North Korea, professional wrestlers have been bringing their circus-style mayhem to Pyongyang. Some watchers speculate the event, co-hosted by a Japanese lawmaker who himself also used to be a wrestler. They hope this will improve relations between North Korea and Japan. Our Son Jung-in has this report.
The crowd cheers as renowned names from the wrestling world like Bob Sapp and Jerome Le Banner take to the ring. The last time Pyongyang hosted a pro wrestling competition like this was in April 1995. Foreign media reported on the event, taking a greater interest in the changes they have noticed in the state, such as its developed infrastructure and increasingly savvy spectators.
This is the first time I've watched such an event. It was very impressive. I hope these friendly games take place more often for the sake of unity.
Some American visitors were in attendance, including Praj Michel, who co-founded the hip-hop group The Fugees.
The infrastructure seemed really good for a third world country. You know,
at least what we're allowed to see.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly.
With guests like Praj Michel, who is a friend of U.S. President Barack Obama, some speculate it was North Korea's move to improve its international relations, but experts view it as an ordinary sports diplomacy event that Pyongyang has been holding for a long time.
The move is seen as North Korea's way to show that its young leader is active and friendly to the people by hosting athletic events.
In line with the competition, Antonio Inoki, a Japanese wrestler turned lawmaker who co-hosted the event, met with North Korea's ceremonial head of state Kim Yong-nam over the weekend. They are believed to have exchanged views on Japanese nationals who were abducted by North Korean agents in the 1970s and 80s. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Well, in some economic news now, the Korean government is considering raising the 2015 budget by roughly 5%. This move is aimed at balancing the need to boost the economy while also maintaining the country's fiscal soundness. Now, while 5% might seem like quite a lot, the expansion is lower than the increase requested by government ministries. They want about 6%, and much lower than the around 10% increase in spending that experts expected. Yulian reports.
A lawmaker from the ruling Saenuri Party who has been briefed about the government's budget plan says it's highly likely the government will expand next year's budget by about 5% for a total of 373.6 trillion won, or roughly 368.4 billion US dollars. Although that sounds like a lot, it's much lower than the 10% bump expected by analysts and the 6% requested by government ministries. The government had previously said it would continue its expansionary macroeconomic policy until the economy gets back on the path to recovery. And it had unveiled a new $40 billion stimulus package back in July to pump up the economy. But according to another Saenuri lawmaker, a major budget expansion has proven difficult given the decline in revenue from the sluggish economy. As part of the plan, similar or overlapping government projects will be merged or abolished to cut costs. However, there will be budget increases. Following the deadly Sewol-ho ferry disaster that left over 300 dead last April, the government plans to increase the national safety budget by 12% to about 13 billion US dollars. Yurian, Arirang News.
Now, while developed nations have been trying to reduce household debt levels since the global financial crisis, Korea's household debt has been hitting new heights every year, unfortunately. Although recent deregulatory measures in Korea have given housing prices a much-needed boost, they have also have the potential, to cause debt levels to swell even further than they are now. Kwon So-ah reports.
Korea's household debt has not only hit another high, standing at over $1 trillion in the second quarter, the upward trend is the exact opposite of what's happening in developed nations, which have seen their debt levels decline since the 2008 financial crisis due to a focus on lowering debt levels. According to the Bank of Korea, the national debt rose from $714 billion in 2008 to $1 trillion at the end of last year, putting Korea high on the OECD's list of highly indebted nations. Korea's debt has grown by an average of 8.2% per year from 2008 to 2013, while that of countries like Germany and the UK have shrunk by 0.5% and Japan shrank over 1%. Financial experts say households in developed nations have either filed for bankruptcy or paid off their debt, but that of Korea's household debt threatens to keep rising. The upward trend is attributed to a recent set of measures that relaxed mortgage lending regulations but could spur household loan growth. In addition, the Bank of Korea lowered the interest rate by a quarter percentage point in its August session to 2.25%, which is the first such cut since May 2013. The government believes the pace of household loan growth is not yet cause for alarm, as the new measures have also helped pick up the housing market. But experts like Standard & Poor's analyst Ritesh Maheshwari say the growing debt poses risks to the banking sector as there is more debt than disposable income. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, a team of local researchers have developed a supercomputer that can help predict diseases like cancer by analysing vast amounts of genomic data. With access to so much information now, researchers also expect that diseases could be diagnosed much faster than ever before. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
This is Maha, a supercomputer developed by Korean researchers. It can analyze genomes to detect whether a person is prone to cancers and other rare diseases with just a drop of blood. And it has been selected to take part in a research at the International Cancer Genome Consortium.
The entire world can access the supercomputer, and it can analyze the data of 500 people at once. Using the information, doctors can publish their findings in international journals.
The Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute, the maker of Maha, reduced its power consumption by 1/3 and storage space by 1/7 and enhanced its performance 7-fold. And compared to similar foreign products, the time taken to analyze genomes has been shortened by at least 30%. Researchers expect to diagnose all sorts of diseases in less than an hour through the supercomputer's DNA analysis, which could pave the way for a so-called tailored medical generation in the near future.
Such services will be released by 2020 at the earliest, and the prices will go down gradually, so there will be a day of a genome generation.
Local researchers hope the development of supercomputers will eventually get rid of unnecessary treatments or side effects connected to diseases. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Right, well, it's Monday, so that means it's time for Industry Insight. And now we're going to take a look at local electric car battery makers. And they are competing to gain an upper hand in an industry that's considered by a great many people to be one of the next major growth engines. Our Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
Technology evolves as it's commercialized. Same goes for electric cars, which are still too pricey compared to their regular counterparts that nobody wants to buy one. The key to slashing the price and luring more consumers to this carbon-free auto market is cutting the costs of the battery, which accounts for 40% of the car's total price. So could the electric car era hit anytime soon? Take a look. By 2020, more than 10 million eco-friendly vehicles powered by batteries are expected to be on the roads. And this industry of tomorrow is taking root here in Korea with a couple of local companies spearheading the global electric car battery market. Korean battery makers LG Chem and Samsung SDI are expected to make up half of the industry's market share this year. LG Chem recently won a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars from Audi, while it has already secured 20 global customers, including General Motors and Ford. Samsung SDI supplies batteries to German premium automaker BMW. Experts say Korean players are better positioned at this point.
The competitive edge of local battery makers have strengthened since developing batteries for mobile phones and other home appliances. Based on that, they're now building up their technology for batteries in electric and hybrid vehicles.
Battery life is not necessarily an issue anymore. Companies already have the technology to develop a battery that can run around 320 kilometers on a single charge, enough for a normal daily drive. But the key is in building an electric car market that's big enough for them to drive down the price. And in the long run, securing as many customers, that is, automakers, as possible to set the industry's standard first in this fairly new industry is the key to success.
The electric car market is still in its early stages, so once battery makers establish business relationships with automakers, it's likely to continue for decades. It's important to secure deals, although they might face losses for now.
There's no room for too much optimism for Korean electric car battery makers, with their biggest competitor Panasonic teaming up with American electric car maker Tesla to build a massive battery factory in the U.S. It's a big leap by the Japanese battery maker that's pushing to break through from niche territory. 황지혜, 아리랑 뉴스.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this 1st September day. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called for the statehood of eastern and southern Ukraine and called for immediate, substantive and meaningful talks toward that end. The Russian leader made this statement in an interview broadcasted on Sunday, saying statehood was necessary in order to protect the legitimate interests of people living there. His spokesperson later insisted that the comments did not amount to an endorsement of separatist rebels, adding that only Kiev can reach an agreement with New Russia, the term coined by the separatists for the territory they hold. President Putin also said Russia as a state cannot stand aside and do nothing while relatives and friends are being shot at by Ukrainian forces. He reminded the West that Russia is a strong nuclear power and that it's best not to mess with us, in his words. Kiev has said it is open for talks to give the territories more say in the way they are run, but refused to negotiate with the armed fighters they see as international terrorists backed by Moscow. Political protests in Pakistan turned fatal Sunday as police clashed with opposition activists calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. They allege Pakistan's leader was elected via corruption and election fraud, an allegation the 64-year-old has denied. The confrontation in Islamabad, the capital, was triggered late Saturday night, ending with 3 people killed and almost 400 others wounded. After the deadly clashes, Pakistan's army commanders expressed their concern but said they support democracy, as Prime Minister Sharif was elected in the country's first civilian transfer of power. And Thailand's former army chief and now Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has named the members of his cabinet. He's placed former military leaders to lead the ministries of Defense, Justice, Commerce, and Foreign Affairs, or more than 1/3 of the available positions. General Prayut was officially made interim prime minister last week after receiving the king's endorsement, a post he is to hold until a general election slated for next year. Concerns have been growing that Thailand will be ruled by the military after Prayut had led a bloodless coup against the elected government of Yingluck Shinawatra earlier this year. And a partial building collapse to tell you about in a suburb of Paris that has shocked a community there. 2 people, a young child and an elderly woman, were killed in the explosion on Sunday morning, with 10 others still missing. Authorities say 12 people were pulled out of the debris alive. 4 were seriously hurt, though. The blast is believed to have been caused by a gas leak. The investigation has begun as rescue efforts continue.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 World Badminton Championship, where the Korean men's double team were guaranteed a gold medal after the Lee-yong-dae, Yoo Yeon-sung and Shin Baek-cheol, Ko Sung-hyun pairs advanced to the finals. But quite a surprise during the final as the 10th-ranked duo Shin Baek-cheol and Ko Sung-hyun beat out the top-ranked Lee Yong-dae and Yoo Yeon-sung duo 2-1, winning the men's double gold. And with the gold medal finish, it's the first time in 11 years that Korea has claimed the gold medal. And speaking of first place finishes, 18-year-old Jeongyeon, playing at the Bangkok Open Challenger, became the youngest Korean to win a Challenger tournament. Now facing off against Australia's Jordan Thompson in the men's final, Jeongyeon cruises through in straight sets 7-6, 6-4 after being down 2-5 in the first set. The first place finish makes him the youngest Korean to win at a Challenger event, giving him a nice $50,000 prize as well. And now shifting over to the 2014 FIBA World Cup currently taking place in Spain. The Korean national basketball team lost against Angola 80-69 in their first game and went up against Australia on Sunday. Trying to bounce back from their first loss, the Korean national team tried their best to stop the Australian offense, but their size and power too much as the 9th-ranked Australia dominated the entire game, winning 89-55. And now moving over to Sunday night's K-League Classic action, FC Seoul and Jeju United drew 0-0 with Jeonnam defeating Jeonbuk 2-1 in a close match. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers play a big game against the Pohang Steelers. Now both teams playing very aggressive from the start here with several yellow cards in the first half, but it's Kim Shin-wook in the 26th minute of the match who heads one past the goalkeeper for a 1-0 Ulsan lead. But just 3 minutes later, it's going to be Pohang Steelers' Kang Soo-il, the equalizer, as the match goes into the second half tied 1-1. But just 3 minutes after the second half kicks off, it's Kim Jae-sung who gives Pohang the 2-1 lead. Now with a total of 8 cards being handed out, including a red, Pohang hangs on to win this match 2-1. And now finishing things off with some Sunday night KBO action, the Doosan Bears remain red hot with a 10-6 win over the NC Dinos, with the SK Wyverns beating the Kia Tigers 4-3 and the Nexon Heroes shut out the Samsung Lions 7-0. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Lotte Giants take on the LG Twins. And of course, going into the game here, third inning, Hwang Jae-gyun deep to left field, got a 2-run shot, and the Lotte Giants have a 2-0 lead. Fourth inning, Park Jong-yoon RBI single to center field gives the Lotte Giants the 3-0 lead. But in the bottom of the sixth, Lotte a 5-0 Lee Byung-gyu 2-run double to left center cuts the deficit to 5-2. But the ninth inning, Hwang Jae-gyun closes the curtains with his second home run of the night, a solo shot, as the Lotte Giants win this game 6-2. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
It's the first day of September, and despite the cool and breezy morning and evening, the heat will continue to sweep the peninsula in the afternoon hours, with highs hovering in the 30 degrees Celsius. And due to atmospheric instability, central parts of the nation will see sporadic showers in the late afternoon, and it's forecast to be a strong one, so be sure to take an umbrella with you on your way out. But the rest of the nation will see mostly to partly sunny skies today, and it seems like we'll have nationwide showers striking back on Wednesday and Thursday. But now, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The afternoon highs in the capital and Gwangju will rise to 30, while Daegu and Busan will peak at 28 and 27 respectively. Now for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 26 and 29 respectively. Dokdo should see highs of 23, while Mount Keungang gets up to 17. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, we're out of time. That's all the stories we have for you at this hour. But Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time with many more stories. And we'll be back throughout the day with even more news updates. And I'll be back myself personally at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.